What did you want to be when you grew up?
What did I want to be? I always wanted to be a policewoman, but I was too, because I'm old, quite old, I was too small.
Right.
I'm only 5'1.5", and years ago when I was like 17, 18, too small.
Yeah.
I always fancied being a policewoman.
So how tall did you have to be a policewoman?
I think it's 5'5" or something.
Right.
And I'm
Yeah,
just going to get nowhere near that ever.
Yeah.
But I always fancied that. I mean, I think years later, I actually went for a job in a control room at Wakefield, but I didn't get through. But I didn't want to do that. I wanted to be a policeman.
Leeds. What is happening? Welcome to episode 23 of Working Hours, a show about a place called Leeds, a time called now, and an activity called work. My name is Simon, and you're listening to my guest, Tina Leslie. This is another Zoom interview, recorded on the 2nd of November 2021. It's taken me some time to get to this and to get to putting this and the next few episodes out. There's a lot of reasons for this, some professional and related to production, others personal. This project is, at the moment, a hard slog, at least it has been recently, and yes, a slog I made for myself. But I do have to find the time, energy and patience to make this podcast. It's not super easy to get guests and it's not super easy to find an audience. It costs money to create, produce and host this show. So there are very strong incentives to stop doing this podcast, but there are also some much better reasons to keep on going. I do find this project fascinating, and I believe there are others out there in my home city who would be likewise fascinated. People who also want to hear from real people. From the people who, like them, do the actual work. Not people selling books and talking abstractly about us all as if we're just data, but actually listening directly to people in or from our city. Hearing from them, from you, about all the differences and similarities in our roles and workplaces. Hearing about the sort of work you do and why you do it. Hearing about my neighbour's day, taking a snapshot of someone's career at a point in time. Hearing directly from a person about how what happens in the media actually affects their work. Tina was great to hear from, and I hope you enjoy listening as much as I did. Tina Leslie is a former call centre worker and community development worker. Currently, she is a fitness instructor and public health worker. She is also the founder of Freedom for Girls. Freedom for Girls' mission and aims are to support those who menstruate by challenging the stigmas, taboos and gender inequalities associated with menstruation through education, provision of menstrual health management solutions, and actively being at the forefront of the wider campaign against period poverty. I wanted to get the language right there. To find out more about Freedom for Girls, go to www.freedomforgirls, that's the number 4.co.uk. If you're a lawyer and you're listening to me and you think you might be able to answer questions you already know all the answers to, please get in touch to arrange a time to record for this show. Email me at workinghourspod@western-studios.com, add a short bio and some suggestions of your availability. Also drop me a line if you have any queries or feedback, complaints or compliments. If you can be generous and wonderful enough to leave me a review on Apple or Amazon, then please do so. If you can leave a really good review for me, please do. That would be really good.
So what is it that you're doing now then?
Whoa, what is it that I'm not doing now? More the question. So my day job is I work in public health. I'm a health improvement practitioner. I work in the inner east of Leeds. I've worked there for 13 years. I'm also a fitness instructor. So I teach many different things, circuit training, HIIT training, Pilates, you name it, spin, that sort of thing. I also founded Freedom for Girls, period poverty charity.
Mm-hmm.
That's quite a bit of a full-time job as well. And as well as that, I volunteer a lot with food banks. Well, a lot since COVID anyway. So yeah, do a lot of stuff with food banks and also other items that people are really needing nowadays that we wouldn't think about normally.
So let's start with the health and fitness first. Which came first, the health or the fitness? Were you a fitness person who decided to get into health? Or?
No, well, really, for the first 25 years of my working life, I worked in call centres.
Right.
And I thought that that's the only thing I could do because I left school many, many years ago, 40 years ago, with no GCSEs or anything like that. So I always thought that I couldn't do anything, I couldn't achieve anything, and that's all I could do. I could sell, I've got the gift I had the gift of the gab, so people used to tell me I could sell ice to the Eskimos. So I sold a lot of things. I started with sewing machine needles, would you believe? No, the first job I had was selling steel girders.
Nice.
And then I sold sewing machine parts and needles. And then I went on to do selling bank accounts at First Direct. So yeah, the fitness stuff came later, would you believe, when I was 40. You know, when people say life begins at 40.
Yeah.
Well, it certainly did for me. It was just a very strange time.
Yeah.
So yeah, at school I was always like quite athletic. I used to like sports, used to like swimming. But over those 25 years, I didn't really do a lot. And then when I got to 40, I had my third child and I put on like 5 stone in weight and I hated it because I'd never been really big. So I decided to go to the gym. So we had a gym at the bottom of our street. So I joined that and started working out, and I started going to classes. And there was these 2 amazing fitness instructors there. And I just thought, you know what, I could probably do that. I don't know why, but I thought I could do it. So at the time, I was on quite a low wage and I could get loads of college courses free. It was when working families tax credit actually helped you rather than hindered you. So they used to offer you lots of things that they don't offer you now. So I went and did about 7 or 8 courses at Thomas Danby, what it used to be, in 18 months. So I realised that actually I was quite a practical person. You know, I can't write reports and I can't do degrees, but I can draw stick men and teach people how to exercise. So that actually came first. And I did lose my 5 stone and everything like that. And I became a run leader and lots of other things like that. And then through that, I don't know, I suppose a few different things. I got a job as a community development worker. Never thought I would ever become a community development worker, but it was a case of I started doing some exercise classes in the community while I was doing my courses, while I was still had my job at First Direct, which is where I worked. And this woman came up to me. She said, "Oh, you're a natural. I think you'd be really good at community development work." And I said, "I don't even know what that is." She said, "Well, I'm leaving in 6 months. I'm going to New Zealand. So I'm going to show you what I do. Because I know you can do it." Anyway, so basically that's what happened. And I was just a natural. You know, everybody says you've got one thing good in you that you can do in your life.
Yeah.
I think that was what mine was. I could speak to people. I was good at talking and getting people motivated. So I actually got her job 6 months later. And that's when my actual life turned around, because my wage doubled overnight from being in a call centre to actually being a community development worker. So yeah, that's how it all started really. And then what happened was, after 18 months, because I had 3 children and a mortgage and it was a funded job and I'd never had a funded job, I thought, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? So I applied for this job in public health as a health improvement practitioner and got that job amazingly enough. I did do NLP and stuff like that to try and overcome my fears of like, I'm not worthy of this job because I always thought I'm really, really thick because I never got any qualification. And even today, I'm still the same. But I've actually realised now, I think I've got some sort of dyslexia or dyspraxia or ADHD, that I don't learn the same as other people. I can do practical things, but not, other stuff.
Yeah, I'm dyspraxic, and it wasn't shown up until I was doing my degree as a mature student. So I was in my 30s before it was diagnosed. And if it had been diagnosed during school, I would have had a totally different sort of outcomes in school. And you just think of all those people, like everyone in all those classes all those years ago, they just, nothing gets picked up.
No, and I always thought it was like, the older I got, the more I thought there was something wrong with me, because I could read stuff and understand it, but not write it.
Right.
I get this block, and I can read something and then only take the first bit in.
Yeah.
And then everything goes all over the place, and to write it down and it's only in the last few years that I've thought, well, actually, is there something not quite? It's like like your brain isn't wired up. How can people remember? That's why I was never good at exams, because when 40, everything was exams. In fact, apart from the 16 plus, which was geography, which because it was multiple choice, I passed that. So it's very practical, and I've got lots of level 2 and level 3s in fitness instructors and exams, but that was all practical stuff.
Mhm.
So I think nowadays there's a lot to be learned by that, I think. And that still I'm not diagnosed, but I know there's something wrong with me. But actually, would you believe, in the end of September I did sign up for a degree?
Right. Cool.
Bit ridiculous, but it's a degree in what I've been doing for the last 13 years. So it's health and society.
Yeah.
And I am really, really struggling. And I really I've already said I don't want it. After 2 weeks, I said I can't do it. I love the lectures and I understand it all, but actually my head doesn't get around the reading, and I'm like, it puts me off. And I think that's almost like ADHD. You just I've got a concentration level of a gnat, I think.
So, I can't remember how I did it. Yeah, it was someone, while I was on my course, was kind of like, you should probably get yourself tested for stuff. And then once you've got that kind of diagnosis, then you can kind of get the support. But I think it's probably like, if you're doing the degree, I really enjoyed my degree. And I think, I think anyone would normally get quite a lot out of the degree, especially when you're doing it later. So if you do want to continue, I think it's probably worth, getting it looked at. And
yeah, I mean, I said that to the course leader, actually. I said, she said, oh, we'll help you. I've said to her about, all the fears that I've got about doing it. And she said, oh, yeah, we'll help you. It's like, no, but do I need to get diagnosed? And then obviously you have to pay to get diagnosed.
Yeah.
And it's like, when I looked through all the leads, the uni stuff, it said, oh, yeah, if you've been diagnosed this, we can help you with that.
Yeah.
But it's like, well, actually, I haven't been diagnosed. So how are you going to help me? It's like.
Yeah. I think student services can potentially put some money towards, or they can recommend like the education. But I don't know. It was ages ago when I did it, and the rules change every 5 seconds, don't they?
Yeah, exactly. They're all business now, aren't they? It's all just a business, like massive. No, we won't go there. We won't go into like, universities are just there to, like get loads of money from students. But I'm not paying for it. So my work is paying for it.
Yeah. They'll pay for you to be tested, no doubt, surely.
I might look into it.
Yeah, have a look through the work policies on learning and development stuff and see. Look, it says this here that you forgot to update.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's really funny because during lockdown, me and my friend used to go walking. Well, we still do. We've done it for 18 months. Every morning before work, we'd go out at 7:00 and walk around the park. And another friend said, oh, I think you've got ADHD. I'll send you a questionnaire. Anyway, she sent me this questionnaire, and as we were walking around, I did this questionnaire, and it's like, ding!
Yeah.
ADHD. I'm not really OCD about anything, as in, I suppose I sort of am, but yeah, it's quite interesting, isn't it, when you do a questionnaire and something says, oh, it's not, it's almost like almost like a label, but it's not, because it was only a questionnaire. Right? It wasn't a diagnosis or anything. Anyway, that's by the by. That's going off what we're talking about, but it's quite interesting anyway.
Yeah, it's an interesting diversion.
Because I think a lot of people, like you say, at school, people just aren't practical. I mean, some people are practical, and some people are very good at, writing and things like that. I was never good. I can remember numbers, but not words.
Yeah, well, I mean, people's brains are just wired differently. Everyone's kind of wired a bit differently.
Well,
so, like, it must have been a little bit overwhelming to then go into a job in public health. I mean, were you doing sort of health work in the community development work?
So my community development work was like, my title was, what was it? I can't even remember what it was now. What was it? It was physical activity community development worker. That's what it was. So basically what I had to do is get the whole of Chapeltown and Hare Hills physically active, which I did quite well at. I mean, at one point I'd set up over like 21 sessions a week in different places, doing things. And I also did other stuff as well. So I also did, so not just doing the fitness stuff, I organised I suppose health, like I suppose community unity days and things like that. And I work quite closely with public health, because a lot of public health funding goes towards third sector organisations to put stuff on. so like community days and like weight management things. So I sort of knew a little bit about it, and I'd worked quite closely with some people, and I'd done, it was very innovative in the day. I did a sort of project called Moodments, and it was about getting men who had low mood into doing physical activity and getting together because they were quite isolated. So that was quite well before its time, and that was a public health funded thing then, and that worked really well. And we're going back 13 years, 14 years now. Now it's a massive thing, but then it was like, well, this is really, really new, but it was a gap.
Yeah.
But yeah, so going into then public health, it was quite scary because I didn't even know what it was. It took me 2 years to actually really understand what it was, because most people in public health have a master's.
Yeah.
So you have to have a master's, but because I was only a practitioner, I didn't need a degree, which was quite good. And also I did a lot of practical things and because I knew a lot of people in the community already, because I'd worked as a community, it really helped with my public health role. So it was almost like an extension of that, but it was just working with organizations, not people.
Yeah.
So it's like a step up. Community development is taught, is actually working with people on the ground, whereas public health is more working with the organizations that are working with the people on the ground.
Yeah.
It took me a long while to sort of understand that.
Yeah. Did it feel like just a sort of natural progression to kind of go into that role, or was it more like you should really do this and you kind of got pushed that way? Or
I think the reason why, I actually took a wage cut to do it, but I realised that actually, because at the time, public health is now in the council. It was in the NHS to start with when my job function then changed into the council. And it was a case of, at the time, I took a wage cut, but actually over the next 2 years, I earned more. And also it was the funded thing. I think I just thought I just need to do this because it's a proper job.
Yeah.
Proper job. And I've got a kid and, I've got a mortgage and 3 children and I'll just have a go at it, But actually I really enjoyed it because you always like make it your own, obviously you have objectives but tackling health inequalities is, massive.
Yeah.
And actually 13 years later, we're doing the same old stuff as we were 13 years ago. It's not got any better.
And as well, you're into, like you say, making the job your own. You're in a level of a role where you do have that autonomy, where they're kind of like, well, we expect you to bring ideas to the table. Did you get that? Were you always sort of front line when you were in the call centres, or did you sort of get into management, supervision, anything like that?
No, I did. I was always on the phones. Apart from, I did a little bit of training. I did some fraud authentication training, which was really interesting. Trying to catch people out who were doing fraudulent applications and stuff. So I did a little bit of training, but that's all I did. I didn't go into management. I never thought I was clever enough to do management. I still am. I'm still not very good. I'm too soft. Say yes to everything. Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, you do it. And I didn't, and I'm not, I think I'm not a competitive person really. I know it's really weird, but I know my own limits. I know what I can do and what I can't do. And what I can't do, I get other people to help me do that.
Yeah.
And empower them to do it because actually I can't. I'm rubbish, some things. And I understand that. It doesn't bother me, whereas other people would be like, I think, and that's that's almost like, I just don't have time to do it. I just need somebody else to help me. And I think it's and that's like a good quality because, you need to work together to do stuff, to get things done. You can't do it all on your own.
Yeah. So we'll stay on this for a little bit longer and then we'll move into Freedom for Girls. We should cover COVID and we should cover the lockdown. If you want to talk about Freedom for Girls during this as well, feel free to bring that up. I've not really got into it yet. What was the lockdown like for you? And what happened? Was it just a matter of stopping everything, waiting and then seeing, okay, well, we're not necessarily going to open in a week, so we have to change all our plans? How did it go for you?
For me, it was like, oh my gosh, this is awful. This is going to be, before lockdown, you just did your stuff like you did. I still had, still doing Freedom for Girls. I was still doing my job, but, we were doing different things. When COVID hit, it was like, okay, we were doing different stuff in public health. Everything went to, first of all, protecting people. So doing a little bit of the health promotion around, staying indoors, protecting yourself, making sure shops and things like that were COVID secure. So I was always out. I was like out on the street, going to shops and giving them posters to say you need to, wear a mask and wash your hands and all that stuff. I was doing all that anyway. And then, so I was always out. I wasn't, everybody else in public health was restricted to their little offices. But I was out and about and I just thought, oh gosh, I need to do, this is really bad. But when the testing came out, I started doing all the testing. So I was out in the testing stations. We were doing surge testing, when all the new variants came along. I was like not organizing, but I was there, like supporting. We were doing door knocking and this and that and the other. I was we had a big testing centre down at Mandela. I don't know if you remember about last August, September time when all the kids went back to school. So we had a testing centre down there and it was just manic because everybody who came back to school with a cough was queuing outside Mandela Centre. We had 250 people a day wanting to be tested because they wouldn't let them back to school. So I was there running about so it was really busy for me. Not just on that level, but also on the Freedom for Girls level, but also on another level as well. So with Freedom for Girls, before lockdown, before COVID, we were delivering about 500 packs a month. That's period packs. And then a couple of months into, I don't know if you know, but you remember the toilet paper issue in lockdown?
Yeah.
So there was a period product buying issue as well, but that never actually came out. So everybody bought pads up until their menopause and stuff like that. So there's none on the shelves. So it was really, really difficult. People had been on furlough. It was just awful. And then, so we ramped up to delivering 2,000 packs a month. But we had to do that differently because obviously there's nowhere open. So all the organisations had retracted that we normally deliver to. People, there was no face-to-face. People weren't going to community centres where we delivered. We weren't going to organisations. So I had like a network of people, women, sort of like a WhatsApp. I'd created a WhatsApp group with all sort of leaders of communities. And I said, right, okay, we can still deliver period pads. Just let me know. And what we did is we ended up finding people in communities who could deliver to their communities. So we would deliver 80 packs to somebody in the Swahili community. And that lady then would deliver, bring up all her friends and say, I've got some pads. They come and collect them from the end of my drive or I'll drop them off at the end of yours. Yeah. So it became a very much everybody working together because periods don't stop in pandemics, unfortunately. And then, so I was still doing my day job, still doing that. But then I realised about, a month or two, maybe April, May time, that there was a lot of kids that I deal with. So I work in the inner east of Leeds, which is Chapeltown, Hare Hills, Gipton, the most deprived areas. That a lot of kids were at home with nothing to do. They didn't have any money. Their parents didn't have any money. So I thought, right, these kids need stuff to do. So I put a thing, like a call out on Facebook to some different Facebook pages and said, I'm doing a collection for kids who need something to do, activity packs. Because that was also what had happened with the people who I was delivering the packs to. The same, we've got kids here who've got nothing to do, they're pulling their hair out, we can't go out. So I managed to, it's ridiculous, in 4 days, get about 10,000 items.
God.
And remember, last year, it was really hot, all through summer. So I went to my friend's front garden, and we got all these toys and activity packs out, and I had a list of loads and loads of kids, their gender and their age, and put packs of stuff together, and then delivered them all out. So yeah, that was a bit of a why the heck have I done that? But I did. But then there's people say, well, it's all right saying I'll go on Zoom to do your work or your classroom work, but some families have one brick phone between the whole lot of them. They've got nothing, so they couldn't do it. They didn't have anything, and then they didn't have any food. So I managed to get food every week from a culture. So it was like started up a cultural food hub. So a lot of people are culturally diverse in where I work in Inner East. So I managed to get every week lots of cultural food and deliver it out to different people as well as the pads, as well as the activity packs. So yeah, it was mad. It was mad. And then somebody rang me up and said, so about the year before COVID hit, somebody rang me up and said, Tina, I've got 10,000 brand new school uniform sweatshirts from Marks and Spencer's in a warehouse. Do you want them? And I went, yeah, that's fine. Yeah, that's fine. Never. Anyway.
Never thought where I'd put them.
Yeah. 3 months after COVID, it was like, oh, we've got these. Do you want to come and pick them up? I'm like, oh my God. So anyway, I picked up the first, and there was how many pallet loads? 40 pallet loads.
God.
I was like, okay, what am I going to do with this? But, I'm thinking, right, they need to be on kids' backs. They're all brand new, all different colours, all different sizes. So I picked up the first 4 pallet loads. I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? So I rang up the council, because I work in the council, and they had a big warehouse where they were doing all the food parcels for all the clinically vulnerable, where they were delivering packs out, food packs. And I said, right, I've got all these sweatshirts. I said, can you work with me and help me, bring them from Cleckheaton?
Yeah.
Please. I said, because we can get them out with Healthy Holidays. We can get them out with the packs and this. And they basically said, yeah, we'll do it. We borrowed a load of racking. We got some people together, some drivers, and they brought them all back for me. And yeah, we got them out, 10,000 items, which was really good. And again, that's partnership working, isn't it? Networking, knowing people. If I don't know anybody, I'll know somebody who does know. But I suppose look good on the council as well, because they were part of it. And then through lockdown and things, I've done a lot of so around the period poverty and around the activity packs and the sweatshirts, we've had quite a lot of publicity, saying this is a positive thing that's happening. So that's what I did. And I also did exercise in my street as well. Because I was like, at the beginning, when it was really nice weather, I just thought, I'm going to go out in the street. So my daughter-in-law's she had a car with a really good stereo. So I messaged all my neighbours and said, right, I'm going to do some exercise. I'm going to do exercise at 4:00 on Tuesday afternoon. And it was great when it was first lockdown, because there's no cars anywhere.
Yeah.
And I mean, our street is a dead end street anyway, but normally we have quite a few taxis coming up. But anyway, it was great. It works really well for about 4 or 5 months.
Yeah.
So I did that as well. So I was actually never in the house. Would you believe?
Yeah. I mean, did you were you working more or working less through lockdown?
Oh,
I was working more.
I was working 70 hours a week every day. Every single day I had something to do, something to pick up. And then I realised that people, I mean, it was great because at the time with the charity shops all closed and everything, people had loads of stuff they didn't want.
Yeah.
And I said to everybody, make sure what you're giving me, you would use yourself.
Yeah.
I don't want your sock drawers. I don't want your knicker drawers. I don't want your broken, crappy toys that you've had in the cupboard. I want some, half, good condition.
Yeah.
And most of them were pretty good. I've had some crap, but most of it was pretty good quality. But yeah, so it was. And so I was trying to do my day job. I was doing that. I was doing the period products. At one point with Freedom for Girls, we were running really, really low on period products because they couldn't get enough in. They were made, I think they're made in Eastern Europe somewhere. So there was a little bit of an issue getting enough on the shelves. So nobody was, because we get a lot of them donated, the period products, which is really good. So from Body Form and Hey Girls, and and also we have donation stations in supermarkets and offices and everything like that. So that all went to pot because of COVID. There's nobody in offices. The supermarkets where we had donation stations, we can't do it because of COVID. So all our stocks went really down. But then there was went from 500 packs a month to 2,000 packs a month. So we were really struggling at one point. But we got through it. We was one of our other period poverty charities sort of came to our rescue. So that was really good.
So you're working more through lockdown. Was that like a more stressful period? Was it a more stressful period of work, or was it just sort of getting on with it? Because you seem like, maybe it's because you're not feeling 100% at the moment, but you seem like a really, really relaxed person that seems to kind of take things as they come. So was that just a matter of getting on with it, or was it like, oh God, I've got to work all the hours that there are? Or...
There was just so much need out there. I couldn't stand it. I've got 3 kids. I've struggled in my life, not as much as some of people out there, but I just thought, you know what? People need food, people need things, people need period products, people need, help, and I can do that. And that's what I did. And, I always put myself in other people's shoes and think, well, actually, I've, not having anything for your kids, not even knowing where your next food's coming from, anything like that. It was a case of somebody has to do it. So, I mean, there wasn't just me doing it. There was lots of doing it. But not as much. I don't think as much as what I did, because I just went and diversed into everything. Which sometimes, and then I went, then like people, then the thing is, when was it, last June, something like that, I managed to get an electric van off the council because I was delivering food. So I was delivering about 2 tons of food a week, as well as period products, as well as everything else, as well as my job, stuff like that. So they gave me an electric van to use. And up until this October, it was free to charge. So that really helped. If I didn't have that, I wouldn't have done half of the stuff I did. So I was doing it on zero carbon.
Yeah.
So that, I mean, I think if I'd have had my car, it wouldn't have lasted. But because I had this van, it was just one of those things that really helped. Still does today, because I'm still using it, which has been amazing, and it was a really good opportunity. And it's like every day, I mean, I think most people have done about 500 miles in their cars, haven't they, this year, in the last day. I've done like 12,000 or something.
Yeah.
And that's just locally, So, so it's been a workhorse. It's been good. And, when people have needed furniture, kids haven't had beds, women fleeing from domestic violence who've got nothing, I've managed to get furniture and clothes and that. And, people who've been moved into new flats off the streets and things like that, we managed to get them stuff. I mean, there's a lot of people doing all that stuff, but that's just an add-on, really, if I can help people. The amount of house clearances I've done is just ridiculous. I've been into some really nice houses and got some really nice stuff, for people. And it's been great,
Yeah.
I mean, the amount of beds that people give away that are absolutely crap, and I have to take them straight to the tip, but I can't say, oh no, this is shit, I'm not going to give you it. But so. But yeah, so what's,
So did you, I mean, I want to go down the route of sort of like valuable lessons from that. I mean, I would imagine being in public health as well, like before we went into lockdown, you'd be seeing a lot of information and, having expectations of where certain things will go and how certain things will happen. And there's always a difference between what's imagined and what actually happens. But do you think through that process, do you think Leeds as a city has built more resilience from that because we had that? So more connections have been made and that there's a stronger network of support groups there now? Or do you think that's just something that everyone kind of had to muddle through, and it's like, now we're getting back into, back to normal, for want of a better phrase?
I think, do you know what? Health inequalities have always been there. I've done the job for that long, and like I say, I'm still doing stuff today that I was doing 13 years ago. You can live in Armley and you can live 12 years less than you can if you live in Old Woodley, and the gap is growing, for your mortality rate, which is not good really for health inequalities and the wider determinants. So if you think about people who were on furlough, people who were on 0 hours contracts who didn't have any, any money, they didn't, I mean, even before that, people on 0 hours contracts, people who were on universal credit, people had to wait 5 weeks for their cash and things like that. People who didn't have any recourse to funds, all those people were still there before COVID.
Mm.
And it just got worse during COVID. But if you think about the people who actually went on furlough, you got 80% of your salary. Now, if 60% of your salary is on rent, 20% are on bills, where's the other 20%?
Yeah.
There wasn't any. People weren't going to the doctors. We were, they kept saying, we're still here. We're not, we're not doing anything. We just have to do it online. But then what happens when people can't go online because they haven't got, we've got digital exclusion, massive digital exclusion. People have got smartphones, but they haven't got enough for data.
Yeah.
At one point in like October, November last year, I managed to give out 120 laptops through the government scheme to all the people that I knew that needed them. And then I'm like, actually, that's fine. But what about the data? People need data. So they got some, is it dongles, isn't it? Dongles to go with them. So the kids could actually, when we had the second lockdown, they could actually do work at home. The health inequalities, the wider determinants, which is like the fuel poverty and the food poverty and things like that. Not just the health inequalities where, smoking and drinking and physical activity. It's the wider issues, and if maybe you're living in an overcrowded house and one of you has got COVID, where's the other 5-6 people going to go, So I think the networking and working together has helped because, I don't know about where you live, but we had like a neighbourly COVID WhatsApp group. Now, in some communities, they're really good. And it's mostly people who are, I don't know, not, working class people, middle class people who've got that sort of facility. But if you're living in the middle of Hales and you've got 15 people in your street who all speak different languages, it's very, very difficult to have that support.
Yeah.
We found that, there was a lot of mental health issues going on with people in culturally diverse communities because they were just cut off from everything. Yeah. They didn't have the money for the phones. They didn't have the money for the data. They just had to stay in, and then they didn't have to, claim for things and things like that. So it was very, very, it's very disjointed. I think the poor got poorer and the rich got richer, basically, because the rich people who, they weren't going out, so they saved loads of money.
Yeah.
The poor people were just like, oh my God, where's my, I worked in 3 food banks, or I still do. And we were getting even last week, we were getting through the door in an hour and a half, 90 people, feeding 422 people, and that's what we were getting through lockdown. We had to do again that differently, where, instead of people coming in, we had to stay at the door giving people food parcels. And there was so many. More and more, and it's getting that way again now. Now the £20 uplift's gone from universal credit, and also your electric bills are going to go sky high. But that's in the future. We're talking about the past.
Do you think a lot of that is just? Do you think that's invisible to a lot of people? Not just because it's not sort of in the media. People will hear about food banks or know about food banks, but they're not sort of present in the popular consciousness, I don't think. So I was going to say something along the lines of, it's kind of, there are levels of sort of Victorian poverty, but because the fashions are different and the litter on the streets different and the pollutants in the air are different, it's kind of it's not the same. Do you think that's fair, or do you think why isn't it more visible?
I don't know why. I think it's still a massive stigma around it as well, about people going to food banks and things like that. People don't want to talk about it. When the press come to me and said, oh, can I speak to somebody who uses a food bank or who's suffering period poverty or something like that? We always get that in the media.
Yes.
It's really difficult. And I think it makes for I don't know, over the last 4 years since I've been doing, the freedom for girls and things like that, it's almost, I know it sounds awful, but it's almost like it comes in trend and goes out trend, depending what the actual world situation is at the moment, and whether it's something's triggered something off. Do you know what I mean? It's quite interesting the way the media work.
Yeah.
And it's quite interesting the way the government work as well, when they're asked about things like, they totally don't get the question. Do you know what I mean? If they're saying, why is there, 1.9 million people accessing food banks last year? Well, we've, like, I suppose as an example, we've given them an extra 20 quid a week. What do you want us to do? It's almost like brushing it off, that it's actually not a big problem. It is only for a very small minority of people. Actually, it's not. It's like quite a big, and I suppose it is that sort of thing that it's very sad to talk about. But it needs to be almost like turned around into a positive, that actually, people are helping. It's the food banks that are helping these people. And I think for me, it feels like it's sometimes the press don't want to, they don't want to report on it because it's not
too much of a downer.
Yeah, exactly. Well, no, because all news is downer, isn't it? Anyway.
Yeah, but it's not. There's no viscera, is there? They're not like, there's not bodies on the floor that they can go.
No, there's no murder. Yeah, exactly. No crash, or there's no, So yeah, so I think it's quite a small thing, and I mean, it's been really good with like the media in Leeds. So like I've got quite a good relationship with Radio Leeds and BBC and people like that, and they've been really good at reporting what I've been doing. It's just getting it into the news and saying, yeah, please do help people. Please, do donate period pads, and please do donate, like food and things like that. I mean, we are, I think, is England one of the most charitable countries in the world, aren't they, for giving money to charity? But yeah, I think people still don't realise that, what do you mean you can't afford 50p for a pack of period products? But actually, if you're living on nothing, zero, money, that's why you can't afford them. Or actually, if you give me those period pads, I can then spend that 50 pence on a loaf of bread to feed my kids.
Yeah.
I'm on the streets and I've got nowhere to live. How am I going to, I can't claim for any money. I'm a failed asylum seeker, or I've got no recourse to funds because, I am here, but I can't go back to where I am. So I'm in limbo, and I get £27 a week. And actually, I can't use that towards hygiene products. I'm in a HMO, which is like a massive, it's like what's it called? I can't remember how it's, lots of people who live together.
Right.
So, like multiple occupancy. So lots,
right.
And there's nowhere to go. And, my job's gone because of COVID. All the people who were doing cash in hand work, like if you think about in Leeds, in Cross Green, all the warehouses and things like that, people were doing jobs in there. They all went, and they were all 0 hours contracts, or, cash. I see them all.
Or casual or temporary, or
absolutely, yeah. Again, I keep coming back to the women fleeing domestic violence. They flee with nothing, just with the clothes they're standing on. Women coming out of prison, things like that. They've got nowhere to go. They've got nothing, no money. They have to, apply for everything. So there is, a lot of people out there, but because it's the minority and it's not the majority, people just don't, and it could happen to anybody really. People could, lots of people have lost their jobs, but.
Do you think we should get into freedom for girls then at this point?
You can do, yeah.
Do you want to take us through the story of that, how you started it and how long it's been going, where you got into it? Yeah?
I can, yeah. Freedom for Girls started around about 6 or 7 years ago, probably 6 years ago now, when a friend of mine asked me randomly if I wanted to go to Kenya, because she was going to set up a project around the prevention of mother-to-child transmission of HIV, totally random to what I was doing. She works in public health as well, and my kids were growing up, and I said, oh, yeah, I'll come she said, will you come with me? And I said, yeah, I'll come with you, like you do. Just thought about it for about a millisecond. I thought, oh yeah, I've never done that before. I'm going to be to Africa. Thinking, oh my God, what have I done? Anyway, so I did this. So we went over there, and I was doing that, helping her with that project for a couple of years. And she was a midwife, and she was doing all the stuff, and I was doing all the back office stuff. And after a couple of 2 or 3 times of going there, I just thought, I need to do something else. This, I'm bored. It doesn't float my boat. So I looked around, and I loved the people, and I loved the country, and I looked around and different projects to do. And then because I was going to do something with sport and physical activity. This is, I raised some money to renovate a football pitch in a school, and I managed to get some uniforms, some football boots and football kit people had donated to me. But then I found out that 60% of girls and women didn't have access to safe period protection, sanitary towels or period products or anything like that. And they used ash and dung and bits out their mattresses. They used paper and leaves or just sat in the hole. And I just thought, oh my gosh, this is awful. And I remember back when I was 11 years old and I started my period on a French exchange trip. And I was going to France. I was 11. I didn't speak French. And my French exchange was a boy, and he had 3 brothers. And I just spent the week, using toilet paper, sleeping on the floor because I didn't want to ruin the French, lovely, beautiful French.
Yeah.
And that was 40 odd years before. And I just thought, you know what? These girls, they've got this every month. I remember this like it was yesterday. And this is what I want to work on. This is what I'm going to do. So I came back from a visit from Kenya and thought, right, this is what I'm going to do. Looked around at different models of work and got my friends together one Saturday afternoon and said, right, we're going to make period products out of sheets and towels. And so I got them all in a church. My community development coming alive again. So the old brother sewing machines just did them off. I went and used this for years and tried to make these really awful period products, these, reusables, because I reckon that we couldn't just do one-use products over there. It was not environmentally friendly. There was 2,000 kids to 2 holes in the ground. Giving them one-use products will not do anything. It won't sustain, them for, more than a month, and you have to keep supplying them.
Yeah.
And I also realised that they had no information around menstrual health management, so no education on that apart from the science thing. And most girls didn't even get to far in school to actually learn about that. So a lot of them dropped out. So we did these washable reusables. I ended up throwing them all away because they were really bad. And then I looked around at different models of work and realised that a few people had worked on it. And I found this organisation's charity in the US who'd been around a few years and perfected a washable reusable pad and perfected menstrual health management education. Got in touch with them, and at first what I did is I ordered some just to see what they were like. So I went out and then in between that time I put what we'd done on Facebook and said what I wanted to do. I hadn't even thought of the name Freedom for Girls. I just thought I'm just going to work on this myself as a small project. And so a friend's family had seen this on Facebook and got in touch with me and said, oh, this is a really good idea. We've got a fund. Do you want to apply for some funding to do this? Because we're really interested in Kenya and also WASH, which is, water and sanitation and health. So projects in Kenya. So I applied for it's about $5,000 or something to set up a project. So I went over to set up this project and I went over to Kenya for 3 weeks. And I managed to, so I took some of these packs over there and I said to this lady, I said, oh, this seamstress, I said, oh, here's a pack. Do you think you can make that? And she went away and an hour later she came back and it was perfect. And I said, right, that's great. So I sort of ordered some sewing machines and some material. We realised that we can't do that deck by PowerPoint in the middle of nowhere. So what we did is with our educational materials, we blew them up into sort of poster size made out of leather materials, so we could just put them on, blackboards and things like that. So that's, I suppose, how I started, just as a small. And I think the first lot of money we made about 500 packs or something. But these packs lasted 3 years. So it was really sustainable. So that, was a good bit of education, because girls, their attainment level was low, their truancy level was high. They missed 3 months of school a lot of girls actually dropped out of school as well. When they started their periods, because they were so embarrassed, the massive stigma and taboo. They were using rags, they leaked everywhere. I remember when we delivered some of these packs to a school, the head teacher said, "Look out there." She said, "Nobody's shuffling." All the girls used to shuffle around because they had a rag between their legs. We're more worried about what was happening down there than what's happening on, So they weren't even, even if they did go, a lot of girls were sleeping with men to get money to buy pads so they could go to school, because they realised that education is the key. And then they'd get pregnant and, awful things happen like that. So that's how that started. That's how Freedom for Girls started. And then in 2017, it was a bit mad, really. So I've just been doing it for a couple of years and getting bits of funding, still going over, paying for it all myself. I've got a credit card the size of a mortgage, the amount of times And so in 2017, a colleague of mine rang me up and said, "Oh, Tina, I know what you do in Kenya. It's really good. I've got 5 girls here in my school, and they are missing school every month because they've got an issue with buying pads, or one of the girls doesn't even know that she's having a period. She's been having a period for 2 years and she didn't even know what it was." And I said, "Okay, right, let me see what I can do." So just through a series of events and conversations, I ended up going on Radio Leeds and talking about it. And Radio Leeds actually managed to get an interview with the girls. And they were saying, that they're using toilet paper and socks and things like that. And obviously, that was really heart-rending. It was awful, really, And I met the girls, actually, and I said that this, afterwards. So from that little interview with Radio Leeds, it then got onto the BBC News website, and then it got into the Metro, and then the whole world's press descended on me. I mean, basically the whole world descended on me. How can there be period poverty in the 6th biggest economy in the world? And I think it was the top read most article on the BBC News website for 4 days. I then got invited on Woman's Hour and spoke to them on Woman's Hour, which made it even worse, because then it was like even more people wanted to speak to me. And so I was trying to make it more positive, really. Not positive, just like, because there was no research, there was nothing at all about anything. So it was a massively new thing, but it was also a big news story as well. People thought I was a big organisation. It was only me. It was really, and so I put it down to, at the time I think it was one, remember Daniel Blake?
Yeah.
So the girl went to the food bank and she asked for period products and there wasn't anybody. So that was before I came along, because nobody thought food banks, there was no hygiene poverty, just food poverty, but actually it wasn't. It's always been hygiene poverty. So I sort of used my public health hat on and said, this is the reason. This is, you have to wait 5 weeks for universal credit. There's refugees, there's asylum seekers, people fleeing domestic violence, putting it in context that actually this is happening here because of this, and this. And girls and the stigma and taboo around periods as well. And it was madness. Honestly, I had people from Denmark, Korea, Australia. I was in the New York Times. It was just mental. And then I got, it's quite funny, the day after. And what happened was, the day before I went on Woman's Hour, I messaged my manager and the head of Leeds City Council to say, I'm just giving you the heads up, but I'm going on to Woman's Hour tomorrow and this is what I'm talking about.
Mm.
Anyway, when it happened and when it hit, I got hauled into the office of the Director of Public Health and he went, what are you doing? I said, what do you mean? What do you think I'm doing? I said, there's a process. I said, what do you mean there's a process? What have you done? I said, what do you mean, what have I done? I said, I've done an interview. I actually did email and tell you, but you haven't told anybody. I said, you know what? I said, I've done nothing wrong. I said, you've got an issue with the subject, not the process.
Yeah.
And I just walked out. So, what are you going to do? You can't sack me because I've brought this to the attention of the world. Well, you can't. So,
It wouldn't be good optics,
no, not at all.
especially when you're on the media set. I've just lost my job at.
Yeah, exactly. And it was quite funny because at the time, I was on a hotline to the head of communications every day of Leeds City Council.
Hmm.
And, the director at the time, the director of communications, kept ringing me up saying, so is there anybody else who can do the interview? I went, no, because I'm the only person. I am Freedom for Girls.
I am the organisation.
I am the organisation. Yeah, exactly. Because I don't think they could believe that, one person could make such an impact in the whole wide world. So basically, that's what I did. I put period poverty on the map for a lot of people. So like Amika George, she heard me on Woman's Hour and she ended up doing free periods and we ended up doing the campaign to get free period products in schools. Celia, who runs Hey Girls UK, she listened to me on Woman's Hour and she set up a company that makes organic products now and she's a buy one, donate one, which is fantastic. We did the first period poverty summit in 2017. I think October 2017. Plan International did a massive research with young girls from 13 to 25 and found that 1 in 12 girls have issues with period poverty.
Mm.
So that's what happened.
So have you learned anything about from like
a mouth shut? No, I haven't.
I don't think that'd help you. I think it'd stop you from doing what you have managed to achieve. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite interesting actually how it's manifested into from just that little thing in Kenya to actually this organisation that we're running today, which is still very small, but obviously we're very well known. But yeah, so we've diversified now. We don't just do Kenya, obviously we do the UK as well. I mean, we mostly deliver to around about 100 organisations in Leeds. We have an education section where we deliver education. We've got Black Women's Menstrual Health Research Project going on. We do sewing workshops. We always did sewing workshops where I set up sewing workshops in the local community where people can make the pads that I can then take extra pads to take to Kenya and things like that.
Yeah.
So we always did that as well. So yeah.
You mentioned the sustainability and making the period products in Kenya sustainable. I mean, what are your thoughts and opinions? Have you learned much about, the Western disposability and the amount of products that we go through? And
gosh, yeah. I mean, we are
that could be altered to be more sustainable.
Oh, God, absolutely. COP26. Yeah. I mean, there's more period products found on beaches. I think it's the second most found thing on the beach.
Yeah.
I mean, one packet of pads, I think, is equivalent to about 3 plastic bags, which is really bad. I mean, we're actually just launching a campaign called Making the Switch. So because unfortunately, sustainable products like menstrual cups, washable reusables, period pants, things like that, they're very expensive. People can't afford them. People who need them every day, they can't afford them. So we've been
doing higher maintenance as well, because you've got to be hygienic with them because you're not just throwing them away. So you've got to...
Absolutely, yeah. And you have to wash them or whatever. But, they're really good products nowadays and they are very quick drying. So it's not as if, you have to hang them out. The technology with these products nowadays are really good. And like the cups last 10 years, cups last 4 years. the washable reusables last 3 or 4 years if you use them properly. You can just throw them in the washing machine, so it's not an issue. So yeah, what we're trying to do at the moment is get people to make the switch to these sustainable products, because we have quite a few that we can donate to people. So we're asking them, if you want to try some, and you can't afford them, why don't you try them? We've been doing this with pants quite over lockdown, and people love them. I mean, I know it sounds a bit weird, period pants, but they actually don't leak, and they're actually really good. You wouldn't know to them, and I wouldn't know, because I started this project, went into the menopause, so I tried all these things, which is a bit weird as well. But yeah, so yeah, we want to go down that sustainable route, because obviously, ecologically and environmentally, one-use products are just not, unless they are organic, which there is a lot of more and more organic companies coming on board now. They're not good for the planet at all.
And as well, if you're dealing with the poverty issue in the first place, most of those sustainable solutions are all going to be more expensive, so they're going to be more out of reach than the.
Which is why we're doing the make the switch, so people who can't afford them can have a chance to to see if they like them.
Yeah.
Which it is all good. And actually, if you look at, you look at what in the back of packets and things like that, what the ingredients is. Actually, they don't have to do that on a period, on one-use products. And actually, some of the chemicals they put in, like period products, one-use period products, are not very nice. They're bleachy, they're all white, the bleach. They're not good for you. And they don't have to put what's in them. There's nasty things in them, unfortunately. Which is why we need to, move over to, more sustainable products.
Yeah, I was just going to say, and to show my ignorance, is there still VAT on sanitary products?
No, that was an EU derivative that was going to be removed anyway.
Yeah.
And actually, years ago, most of the supermarkets removed the VAT on them anyway. So it didn't make an ounce of difference. It's just the government saying, "Oh, we're fantastic, we've removed it," but it was going. We couldn't remove it until we came out of the EU anyway. So, but yeah, and it doesn't make a lot of difference. Pets. So they made it a big thing, and it wasn't really. Even though that it shouldn't have been. It's not a luxury product.
Yeah.
Why did we have
essential?
Why? Yeah. Why? Yeah. It's a basic human right, or it is a human right. If you haven't got access to safe period products, you can't function properly. It should be up there with everything else that's a human right. So yeah, it is. Half the population menstruate. It's still the most taboo subject that we talk about ever. And why is that? Because people have never talked about it. Which, I mean, we are talking. When I started in 2017, it was like a big thing. I remember being on, was it Good Morning Britain, and it was the first time they'd ever shown a menstrual cup. People didn't even know what it was, and we're waving it about, going, "Look, this is a menstrual cup." So it's educated people over the different products that are available. And people still said, we don't know what period poverty is. What even is it? Or the new word is menstrual equity. So, I mean, I've never liked the word period poverty. It's almost like poverty. Yes, we know people are poor, but actually it's not their fault most of the time. It's just the way what's happened,
Yeah, but you've got to use language in a way that it sticks in people's brains as well, don't it? In a way that the media can sell it. And
yeah, it is. It's very much, they call it sound bites, don't they? Oh, that's a good sound bite. It's like, is it? Okay, that's fine.
So again, with an assumption, I'm guessing that when you did the media round, the majority of people that were coming to interview you were women, being a women's hour and so on. I'm guessing there was at least one guy. So what I'm getting towards is like, what was it like having that first male journalist go through?
Well, it's quite interesting actually, because the first journalist, actually, big one, was from iNews.
Right.
And he was really good actually. And he said, "I'm really sorry, I don't know anything about anything. Just, talk me through it." And it was really interesting. I went on the Jeremy Vine show, after Woman's Hour, I'd done they got in touch with me and said, "Do you want to do it?" And I'm like, "Oh my God, Jeremy Vine, he's going to pull me to pieces." Anyway, he didn't. He was really good. I said, "Look, I want, you need to make this interview positive rather than negative." And, anyway, it's quite funny because he got really embarrassed actually. And, the first thing I said, "Thank you, Jeremy, for letting me come and talk about, really taboo subject to a man, And then we started talking about something, and then I said, you, because I sort of researched him, and he had 2 daughters. I said, "You've got 2 daughters. Have they started their periods yet? And have you spoken to them about it?" "That's not my job." Why, Jeremy? Why is that not your job to talk about, periods and break that taboo? You need to do that. You need to sort of educate yourself, because actually, if we don't break that stigma, it's always going to be there. And he didn't know what to say. It was quite funny. I was on Radio 5 Live as well, and that was in that. I think I stumped another guy, quite a famous journalist. I can't remember who it was, but yeah. I think they were, the men who interviewed me were quite like, "Ooh, cringe." It was, I've done them all. It's quite funny, really. You get used to them.
I think it's partly, because they don't have an example of how to react, how to behave. It's that not having a model of how to respond.
Exactly.
It's kind of like,
they've got no.
So however I respond is my genuine response. I'm not performing that response.
Yeah. I mean, it was really, really difficult at first because there was no research. Nobody, he was like, "Oh my God, this is a big thing." No research. What's the name? Hartley Brewer. What's her name?
Yeah, Julia.
Yeah. So basically she decimated me because I didn't even know who she was. She was she was horrible. She was absolutely awful. She just slated me, saying, "How do you know this period? But I can't believe people can't afford 50p for a packet of products."
Well, there's a lot she can't believe.
No, well, exactly. And it's really funny because I'd done it on a lunch. I'd just finished a meeting, and all the researchers said to me is, "Oh, she's a bit shouty." That's all she said. I went, "Oh, well, I can deal with shouty." But I just like, she's going, "There's no," I said, "Well, I was saying, well, what about people who are homeless or people who've got no recourse to, oh, there's nobody like that." It's like, and then she tweeted saying, I decimated Tina Leslie on freedom for girls. Oh God, it was just like, and the amount of like negative things that they put about her rather than me. So that was the only ever negative interview I had. Apart from being pulled into the director of public health and being told that there's no such thing as period poverty.
Quite an adventure, really, from just, I want to do something for myself while I'm
Yeah, it was a bit of a journey. It's been a bit of a journey, massive journey, and a lot of hard work. But I suppose you've got to be passionate about things to do them, and to do them. I mean, yeah. And 800 million women in this world don't have access. We need to, not have that anymore. And still we're banging on about it in 2021, and there's still stigma and taboo about it, and still, people are saying, "Oh yes, we're gonna." I mean, even the government actually said, "Oh, we're going to eradicate period poverty by 2030," but actually you're not, because how are you going to eradicate period poverty?
Well, if you're not doing anything other than releasing press releases, then you're not going to do anything.
No, and basically, people say, "Oh, how are they going to do that?" I said, they're not, because actually you need to tackle poverty. So poverty is here, and then you have all the umbrellas. We're just, that's the umbrella, and there's period poverty, food poverty, fuel poverty, digital poverty, whatever underneath that. So until you tackle the actual poverty issue, you're not going to tackle anything else, and that's the issue. And so people can say false promises forever, and it's until we actually tackle that issue, we're still going to have it. I mean, I'm part of the first global period poverty forum that we're going to do a big conference next year in Australia. So bringing lots of people together. So yeah, that will be quite interesting. But again, it's like, why don't we bring some of these governments to book that have said they're going to tackle period poverty, and say, actually, what have you done so far? Nothing. You just said it. A little bit like, some governments that we know.
Like most things.
Yeah, they can just say it. They don't have to do it.
Yeah.
I think over, time, you just actually realise it's all hot air.
Mm. Mm.
I'd like to know where the £250 million is that they pledged to tackle period poverty in the UK
Mm.
in 2018. Was it 2019? So we were on they did a task force. They like these task forces, the government, don't they? So we were on the government task force for access. And we had to go down to London to the Department of Education once a month and talk about access. There was access, there was research, there was something else, I can't remember. There was like 3 tasks. And it took me 6 months to get my rail fare back. We had to go to it for an hour. So there was all the big companies like Lulette's and Procter and Gamble and, people like that. And there was and then they wanted little organisations like us to pay for ourselves to go down to London and then not pay us back our train fare and have to take a day out of work and things like that.
But that's how poverty works as well, though, isn't it? It's like if you're rich, if you're loaded, everything's paid for you. You get everything laid on. You go wherever you want to go. If you're not, you pay for everything, everywhere, everything. Pay for it all, even to the point of if you look, you can tell an area from when they've not got any cash machines that don't charge you. If all the cash machines charge you, you're in a poor area. And there's all just betting shops everywhere.
Yeah. Well, if you go to Hare Hills, it's right.
Yeah. All they do is betting shop, charge cash points,
Yeah. Loft licenses. Off license betting shop, off license betting shop.
Okay, so while we're on happy subjects, let's do Brexit.
Well, I'm not really political, but yeah.
It's more will it or has it affected your work?
Well, no, not as yet.
Right.
Brexit, no, because a lot of the stuff we do is not really. I think if we were doing stuff in Europe and things like that, maybe shipping stuff to Europe or doing something like that, it maybe affects us. Because I've spoken to other, friends who do a load of like sustainability stuff and artist work and things like that, who send stuff to Europe and they just can't anymore because it's too expensive. But for us, at the moment, we've not really had any issues I can think of.
I mean, just from a freedom for girls perspective, I mean, I don't know. I don't know why you would, but you might have numbers on sort of what the manufacturing capacity in the UK is for sanitary products, or how many factories we have, or, if there's just one factory and that closes down and then we have to get things through Europe and then we can't get them anymore. Do you know what I mean? These sort of things that...
Yeah, it's really interesting, because we get a lot of our stuff donated. Like I say, we did have an issue early on last year, even before Brexit, but that was because of lockdown, not because of... So we've had quite a flow of, period products, and we haven't had that issue. But I suppose you need to speak to the companies who do the manufacturing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I know people who send stuff to Europe. What they do is they send it out the EU, and then they have to send it into Europe because it's just too expensive to ship. But yeah, for Freedom for Girls, we've not had any issues.
Okay, so let's do a little bit on social media. I bet Freedom for Girls has been a massive education in social media for you. Or if you've not really dealt with it, have you had other people doing that?
Well, I was doing all the social media. Oh my God, I spent hundreds of hours a week on social media doing, like retweeting and doing, because it is your shop window. I mean, there is we have a team of people now, which is quite nice. And we actually are waiting. We just lost a social media person and we need to recruit another one. 6 hours a week. But when I first did it, I thought, what, I need to, it's our shop window. If nobody knows about us. So, we set up Twitter, we set up, Facebook, we've got Instagram, we have now a great website that Shiona, one of our operations ladies, has set up, and she's brilliant. But we, everything's blind. I didn't even know how to set up a charity. Do you know what I mean? I just thought, after it all hit in 2017, I thought, shit, we need to be a charity, not just an organisation, because I was just a name.
Yeah.
It wasn't a charity. And what I was doing is I was umbrellaing under another person's charity.
Yeah. And I bet you were getting donations and stuff. Well, because you were on the news, people will be sending you things or offers or whatever.
Yeah. So what I did is I set up a GoFundMe page and got quite a lot of money. And remember change.org? It's got $3,000 for us. I'm like, oh, wow. To do, yeah. So it was all a bit weird. So it's all a bit blind, leading the blind at first. But then, like I say, I know that what I can do and what I can't do. So I got a board of trustees. We managed to get the charity up and running in 2018, March 2018. And I think, I know it sounds awful, but we've been really lucky over lockdown. People have been donating, money to us, which has been great. So we can still carry on our work in Kenya, and we do Uganda now, and also in the UK as well. People can't do things for nothing.
Yeah.
For long, because you just lose them. And it's a really big issue that needs addressing. So, and people understand that, and they're really what's the word? Generous is the word.
Yeah.
It's really good. I mean, we've had people shaving their hair off and jumping out of planes for us and stuff, which has been great. But yeah, social media is your shop window, isn't it? People don't even have a look at your website; they just look at your Instagram posts or your Facebook posts about, and we are very much a grassroots organisation. We do a lot of stuff. We're not just an activist site where it's all talk. We're actually action as well. This year we won the Queen's Award for volunteering, which is like an MBE for the charity. And only being 2 years old, that's a massive accolade that I've actually got a signed certificate by the Queen over there, and a plaque. Let me show you. Yeah. Oh gosh. So look.
Very nice.
And then a signed thing by the Queen. So yeah, all very nice. But for her to actually acknowledge that there's period poverty is quite interesting, being 94 years old. But yeah, and also I think Amika George, who set up Free Periods, and a couple of other people, they got MBEs. I was happy that the charity have got that, because it shows that. And then we got a special dispensation for that work over COVID as well. So yeah, that was quite good.
Yeah, that's good. They all, they make for good press releases for you guys, don't they?
Yeah, it did. Yeah, we had a bit of a celebration event, which was nice.
Yeah.
And yeah, we had the press there and things like that, because it's not about us. It's about the people we represent. And I've always said that it's not about me. It's not about what I do. It's about the people who have got no voice.
But that's the difficult thing. We love to personify things. And if it's just, and it from social media as well, like the posts with people and faces get the most traction. And because we want to engage with other people. So, you end up having, or someone ends up having to become, the ambassador or the face of the brand or of the, issue or the topic. It's just,
absolutely,
yeah. Which is not what people always want to do.
I don't want to do it.
Face everyone.
Yeah. I know, it's really hard, especially in lockdown when you couldn't buy any blooming makeup. So, I don't care. You're just going to get me. But yeah, it was quite funny. But yeah, you're right. It's, because I asked, because we've got a bit of a team, I guess, say, right, who wants to do, media? No, I'm not doing it. So I end up having to do it. Leslie, founder of Freedom for Girls, but but at the end of the day, I've done so many of them, I suppose, that it just, and also I realized really early on that you just have to say the same thing, because actually it is what it is, but not everybody knows it. And because at first I was like, oh my gosh, what am I going to say?
You want to keep it interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. But actually you don't need to, because you are just telling the news,
Yeah. You're trying to reach new people. So you're just saying the same message.
Yeah, you have to. Yeah. And then that was quite interesting. I remember sat next to somebody at work when I was in public health, and said to them, said, right, I'm on woman's hour tomorrow. What do you suggest? What do you suggest? Have you got any tips for me? She said, just stick to 3 things. Just 3 things and you'll be fine. And then it was really funny because about a week later, I was sat next to this guy and on the train, I was going to London. I was sat on the train and we got chatting and I said, I'm from Freedom for Girls and stuff like that. He said, I heard that interview. Where was your media training? I went, this woman who was sat next to me. He said, you did a really good interview, and he was head of Virgin Media.
Oh, nice.
Credit cards or something. So I must have done something right. But I just said it from the heart. Do you know what I mean?
And also, you worked in call centres for years. You know how to field questions. You know how to deal with inquiries. You've done it. It's natural. Okay, so we'll cover quite a lot. I was going to ask you questions about sort of what you changed, but I think I'm going to go straight into UBI, so Universal Basic Income. If there was a Universal Basic Income, if you were paid, enough money to live on, and I expect to know the answer to this question, would you still work? Is the first part of the question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
You'd get bored otherwise, wouldn't you?
Oh my God. Asking me that question is just it's just like, what? You want me to sit home and do nothing? It's driven me mad having to stay in here for 3, 4 days, 5 days. You should see, I've got, this here is all the stuff that I need to trying to delegate out.
Just for anyone listening, that was a big ream of papers that Tina's waving at me.
It's thinking, how am I going to delegate all this because I can't get out my front door. I'm not allowed out. It's really difficult. When you're trying to you've done people favors all through, for the last year and 18 months, and then it's like, excuse me, can you just do this for me? No, I haven't got time. It's like, well, I've done this, and this for you, Anyway.
Yeah, but you must be more than used to that. You must as well have a mental kind of they will return the favor. They won't return the favor.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but they will make an excuse. Yeah. Oh, I fell asleep. I'm sorry, I couldn't do it. I'm like, okay, then that's fine. It is very difficult because it really pisses me off. Excuse my language. I don't know if I can swear, but that's. But yes, it is. It really bugs me that actually I've run around for you, and you can't do one thing for me. But anyway, It is what it is. My friend's just sold up everything, and she's going to go live in a camper van. I think that's fantastic. But she's worked all her life. She's like 62. She's got a good pension. So that's what she wants to do. And she's always wanted to do it, and that's what she's worked for. But I just, and good on her. I think it's really great. I know a few of my friends want to do that. Just, up and sell everything up and go on the road. But yeah, no, I don't think.
No, it doesn't appeal to me having been in a van on the road.
especially in this weather.
Oh.
I know, exactly. I mean, they've all got really posh, camper vans with heating and stuff, but
yeah,
that's what they want to do. That's what they want to do. But I think I'm being put on this earth to help people, and that's what and that's what I like doing, and I'm passionate about things, and that's what I'll do. I think there's always somebody worse off than you, and you put yourself in that person's shoes and just try and help them, and that's what I do. And sometimes some people, somebody said to me, what to say, sometimes people are cash rich and time poor. But your time, your time rich. Well, I'm not time rich, but yeah, as in I will go out my way and help people. And I will, because that's what I'm like. So yeah, I think it's just things that I do, and I think maybe I have got ADHD, and somebody said to me, what you do is you channel your energies into positive things rather than negative things, so not destructive. So my sitting down all day does my head in. I can't.
Yeah.
Even sat here for however long it is, I'm thinking, oh my God, I've got a big long list of people talking to
90 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. I have to fill every minute.
So do you see yourself retiring? Do you think you'll ever retire, or will it just be like, or do you think you'll even slow down? I was going to say, will it just be slowing down? But
I don't know. I do think period poverty is going to be here for a long time. So on that front, no. I really enjoy my job in public health. So, I'm not, I've got another 10 years before I have to retire, fortunately. So, yeah. So no, I don't think, unless I win the lottery, that'd be quite nice. And then still, I'd probably just still do stuff.
You'd spend it all on other people.
Yeah. Well, I probably would, yeah.
You'd be like, oh, I can do all of these things with this now.
Exactly, yeah. Everybody aspires to win the lottery, but you don't really need a lot of money in this life. When you get to places like Kenya and you see people who don't have anything, even less than, you see people here with nothing. I've been to some houses where, you just think, oh my God, am I in Dickensian times? This is, I can't believe people, who live half a mile away from me live like they do, in overcrowding, nothing to eat, no flooring, it's just awful. And, and then when you go to Kenya and you go, I've worked in slums and things like that where, people haven't got anything. They haven't even got, a bed to lay on, a mat. You just think, why have all these people got so much money? You don't need all this money. You just do not need all this money. It's ridiculous. I was in Kenya and my friend, she photographs, she lives in Leeds actually, probably need to speak to her about, and she does, she photographs beach rubbish, and she asked me to go and pick up on a Kenyan beach, some Coca-Cola, the plastic red things.
Mm-hmm.
So I picked up about 200 yards, I picked up about 50. Just Coca-Cola tops. She wants to do a project. And then she did a project on footballs, plastic footballs all over the world. So I brought some back from a beach, so that's quite interesting.
You can't go anywhere in the world. Like there's no unspoiled place now.
No.
You can go, you go anywhere and you'll find some crisp packet or.
Oh, really? Yeah. Well, everywhere. A few years ago, Kenya banned the plastic bag, which was brilliant. But they've now brought in bags that are made of plastic. Do you know what I mean? They're not actually plastic, but they are of a derivative of plastic. But it's not as bad anymore. It's amazing the difference in a year. Plastic everywhere.
The fact that,
why haven't we done that? Why have we not? Why can a developing country ban the plastic? Rwanda did it. They were the first ones. Amazing, the difference. It's because too many people make too much money out of them. That's what the problem is.
And lobbyists. So, for my money, all of this, we should have been banning single-use plastics in the 90s. Like everything, all of this is 30 years too late. And the sort of, we're not even talking about an outright ban of all single-use plastic or anything like that. There's a token of it'll be the straws or whatever, because they make it so hard just to actually, and I think as well, the media kind of plays into that. It's kind of like, well, instead of banning all the plastic, let's just ban one token piece of plastic.
Yeah.
That's an easier one to sell in the newspapers and offends less advertisers.
It is just mad. Yeah. It's like baby wipes and nappies and period products and Q-tips and all that sort of stuff. They should have all been banned years ago, or just had an organic version of them.
Yeah, being completely redesigned so that they break down. And
but they made too much money out of one-use plastics. That's the problem. I always think sometimes nowadays we're living in a James Bond film. Like somebody's about to, I don't know whether it be Chinese Prime Minister or Putin is going to take over the world soon. It feels like the older you get, the more and more cynical you get, and the more you think, we're just living in a James Bond film now. It's all a load, we're all heading for disaster. Or he's going to come along and save us, or somebody is. Hope.
Yeah, we'll have to keep hoping. So I think we've kind of covered climate change, ecology. I think we've covered pretty much everything. Is there anything you want to sort of flag up, discuss?
No, I think I've covered everything. I think I've covered most things that we want to talk about. Freedom for girls, which is passionate. My job, physical activity. I love that. I love teaching people.
Okay, I have got one final question because we didn't really cover it. So, I mean, there's a variation on like what 3 things could you change about your workplace. But I mean, if you could have, I mean, it's stick to the 3 things. But if you could have anything, you work any way you wanted it, what would be like the 3 things that you would change
in my work?
Would it be more hours in the day?
Yeah. I do think I need more hours in the day because I just fill them, so that would be terrible. I think I would change the way I think people more upstream need to listen to the people who are on the ground. I think I would definitely change the upstream, like meet in the middle somewhere, with work and things like that. So, people who, strategy and what's happening on the ground sometimes, in your day.
They generally don't talk to each other.
They generally don't talk to each other. I mean, yes, research and things like that is very useful and that's what we need. Sometimes it's a totally different way of listening to people. I wish that public health would recognise that period poverty is a public health issue because they've never actually done that. And I think that's because if they admit there's an issue, they have to then sort it out.
Yeah.
So it's left to grassroots organisations like us to do that. And it is hard work, trying to get funding to do things and make sure people are all right. And what's the 3rd thing? I can't think of the 3rd thing.
Well, that's good.
I mean, I quite like, I hated working from home to start with when we first worked at home. I quite like it.
Cool. Well, thank you very much for your time. Is there anything like, I will put all the links and everything for Freedom to Girls and anything else. I mean, is there anything that you want to flag up? Any sort of like, have you got a crowdfunder still going? Is there, if people want to donate, anything like that?
Do it on the website. I think that's the best way to do it. There's just a donate button on the website. There's, there's things pinned to Facebook and Twitter and things like that. Yeah, it's best through the website. Cool. It's all on the social media stuff. But yeah, if you could share that would be lovely.
As Tina said, it's hard work trying to get funding to do things and make sure people are all right. Thank you again to Tina for being my guest and also just for everything she does. Thank you again, all my guests, and thanks to you, Buggerlugs, for listening to this. Thank you as well for 500 downloads, and thank you to my first Patreon supporter. Please consider joining them and supporting this podcast. I need champions for working hours, and that's exactly what you will be by giving me £1 a month via Patreon to this podcast. That's right, it's only £1 a month for Loiners to support and grow this project. Go to www.patreon.com/workinghourspod to sign up and offer regular support. So if you're listening to this, then I assume that you have some connection to Leeds, like living here or being from here. If you're that person in Leeds or from Leeds and you haven't done a record for this yet, send me a message now and let's record your working hours session. Email this podcast workinghourspod@western-studios.com with a short bio and some suggestions of your availability, or just send me your feedback, questions, comments and queries. You can follow this show on Twitter @WorkingHours3 and on Instagram @WorkingHoursPodLeeds. I'm really interested to hear from anyone in Leeds or from Leeds in whatever industry, sector or role you're in. What is your experience? How do you feel about work? What do you like and not like? What do you do, Leeds? Please remember to like, share, follow and subscribe to this show. Next time on Working Hours, I will be talking to a youth worker. Come back tomorrow for that same Leeds channel. Working Hours is presented, edited and recorded by Simon Treen for Western Studios Leeds Limited. The music was The Bees from Chopin's Etudes, which is in the public domain and was taken from museopen.org.